welcome to Personal Online Tutor. This week I'm going to show you how you can make a running water texture effect inside of Photoshop. So you can add it to things where you would have water splashing, such as a water faucet or coming out of a water bottle or something like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with some sort of object where water would be coming out of. In this case, I'm using a faucet. This faucet is a file that you can get from the downloadable files, which should be underneath the information that should be underneath this podcast or in the show notes. So I have this layer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to set my default colors to black and white. So I'm going to hit the D key to set my colors to black and white, and I will fill this with black. And I'm going to go to Filter, Render, Clouds. And I'm going to hit Command or Control F just to repeat this a couple times. And I want to get one that has a lot of white in it, kind of more uniform. Maybe something like this one. And I'm going to, after we've created our clouds, we're going to blur them a little bit. So I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And I'm blur them a little bit, not too much, not too little, so about maybe like 5-ish. Hit OK. So now it's blurred. Now we're going to add sort of the highlight of the water effect. So to do that, we're going to use another filter called Plastic Wrap. So I'm going to go to Filter, Artistic, Plastic Wrap. So this is my preview. You can see how it's giving me kind of these nice shine due to the plastic wrap effect. You can play around. It's good to probably not have the highlight too strong. You don't want it too bright. You don't want it to be too plasticky. But you do want smoothness on pretty much all the way. You want it as smooth really as possible. So here I have highlight strength about 9-ish, detail about 8, and then smoothness about 15. Although it may, differ depending on your, layer. Each layer is a little bit different, but you can play around with it. I'm gonna hit OK, and then I'm gonna go to. We're gonna add a little bit more of a water effect by applying another filter called Chrome. So I'm gonna go to Sketch, Chrome. So you can see I'm getting this nice sort of watery liquid effect. And you don't want detail on too much because then it gets a little too blurry. Smoothness, you don't want it too smooth. I like to keep, in my case, these a little bit lower, so detail's like 2, smoothness is like about 3 or so. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually blend this into our original layer, and we're going to do that by going to Edit, Fade, and it should say Chrome in this case because that's the last filter we used. And we're going to blend this last filter with the original plastic wrap effect by going to Mode and then using Hard Light. So you can see I'm seeing more of the original plastic wrap. And then I'm going to lower the opacity. I don't want it too strong in my case. So maybe like 65%, something like that. Now that I've done that, I'm going to actually increase our contrast a little bit. It's very gray, our whole layer here. There's not a lot of really bright whites, and there's not a lot of really dark blacks, which makes it look a little muddy. So I'm going to actually, with my layer selected, I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and then Levels. And you can see on the histogram, the black represents pure black, the white represents pure white, and this represents sort of mid-tone grays. This kind of represents how many of each color is in my scene. So there's not a lot of black as evident because it's missing, and there's not a lot of super white, which is why our scene looks a little bit kind of muddy here. So what I'm going to do is just kind of increase contrast by redefining the darkest point. So I'm going to grab the black slider and just kind of slide it in just a little bit, not too much, just a little bit, so you can see how my scene got darker when I did that. And I'm also going to drag my white slider in just a little, just to give it a little bit more of a highlight. Not too much, just a little bit. So my scene already, as you can see, that's what it was before. That's what it was now. So you can see how it looks a lot more sharper. It's more contrast, which makes it a sharper image. So the next thing we're going to do is make this look more like a water stream. I'm actually going to take our image here and just condense it to more of a stream effect by just squishing it. So I'm going to go to Edit, Free Transform. I get my tools, and I'm going to click on the little boxes, which allow me to manipulate my object and drag it in. So I'm just, making it a little bit more of a stream-like effect. I don't want to pull it in too much, but just enough. So maybe about halfway squish, and hit enter. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to make this kind of bend more like an actual water stream. This kind of looks very linear and very, like a flat panel. What I'm going to do is we're going to warp this using Edit, Transform, Warp. And you see, kind of similar to the free transform, I have these anchors. However, unlike free transform, you'll notice that when I click, I can pull each one separately, almost like it's a, like it's a piece of silly putty that I can click and sort of move around. And you'll also notice I'm getting these handles. These are sort of Bezier handles, similar to those in Adobe Illustrator or with the other sort of vector tools inside of Adobe Photoshop. And I'm just going to kind of bend these around. And I'm going to use the Bezier handle to kind of make my water kind of... I don't want it to be too linear. I don't want it to just be too, up and down kind of shape. I really want it to be kind of bent out, like the water's sort of flowing out or something like that. Really. So I'm just playing around with the Bezier handles, kind of getting a nice curve here. It's nice and not, so I'm just playing around. And when I'm done, I'm hit OK. And now that I have my water, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to hard light. And already you can kind of see how this is sort of blending my water effect into my background. And it's going to kind of depend on, where over the background your object is. Lower opacity just a little bit. Just make it blend in. I'm going to get rid of this top part just by adding a layer mask. I'm going to go to Layer, Layer Mask, Reveal All, grab a paintbrush, and just paint in, just kind of shape my shape what's going on here just a little bit. And there we go. There's my nice sort of water effect. And you can play around with, different kind of... you can make it darker just by playing around with levels some more. Playing around with opacity to make it stronger or lighter, depending on what you think looks best. You can also color it as well. I'm going to show you another one I did where this is the same effect, except this time I painted it orange with an orange color to make it kind of look like beer. So same idea, now it's kind of like a beer effect, and it's a nice little water flowing effect. And yeah, that's so just by utilizing filters and effects inside of Photoshop, we're able to make our own water without having to go to the hassle of trying to have a high resolution camera to film it or take pictures. This week's design term of the week is watermark, and a watermark is any text and or design added to a photograph or a video that's meant to not be part of the composition, but instead sort of sit on top of it or sort of deliberately put some specific information not related to the image. So you'll see watermarks a lot, especially if you do image searches on the web. Show a couple examples. So here, this is a photograph I got from iStock Photo, which is a online stock photography distributor. And for their samples, they specifically put on a watermark here with the little symbol and the name and the little X. So specifically that if you download it and don't buy the high res, you're going to have this ugly watermark, which is distracting. Same thing with the Shutterstock. They do a similar thing where they have their watermark on top to it would be kind of an ugly deterrent so that you'll buy the high resolution image. Another time you might see a watermark is a lot of photographers and galleries will put a watermark, usually in the lower right hand corner, that puts, in this case you can see this photograph is owned or taken by JM Galleries, and so they put their watermark here at the bottom along with their email address and a copyright symbol. You can create your own watermark very simply. Simply take an image, and let's say I'm going to put a name and a copyright. So let's say that this is copyrighted by Personal Online Tutor. I'm just going to grab the text tool, put in Personal Online Tutor. And I'll put a copyright. I'm going to use Option G, make a copyright symbol, 2010. And you can use whatever font you want. You can put a design. It really doesn't matter. And so now I have this watermark that sits on top of the image. A lot of times they're kind of semi-transparent. You can take the text and just set it to 50%. And if you want to put an X, make a new layer, grab a brush. I'm going to hold down Shift to get straight lines. Lowering opacity. So there you go, there's my ugly watermark. But that's what a watermark is. Basically any sort of content that is not meant to be part of the actual composition of the image or video, but just meant to be sort of either give information about the photographer or act as a deterrent so that if you send it to someone or a company or something that someone doesn't try to use it without your permission and or not pay you properly. And that's your graphic design term of the week.
Thanks for watching the Personal Online Tutor podcast. If you have any suggestions for tutorials or techniques you'd like to learn, please email them to personalonlinetutor@gmail.com. For more tips and techniques, follow us on Twitter at personalontutor. To learn more about online classes in Adobe Photoshop or personal tutoring in Adobe Photoshop, please visit personalonlinetutor.com.